So this is for Georgia, who's about 4 years in Israel, off and on, and she came, brought more of her family to volunteer here since the start of the war. And I have to also emphasize that Hamas attacked Israel, and Israel has a IDF, which is Israel Defense Forces. They got money, they got everything, the Hamas, and they attacked us and they made snuff on us. So she came here and she has opened a small business while her boyfriend is fighting. So she asked about the receipt, okay? She asked about how to take out a receipt, and I want to cover this in English for her. They actually, according to the tax ordinance, which is a leftover of the British Empire, anyway, according to the tax ordinance, it was at 1973, the legislation of how to run your books was the legislation came out, the micro legislation, so then people were supposed to run books. And since then, there are many amendments that are being done to them. So I'm going to talk about a receipt. Okay, so Georgia has a business as a lawyer. Okay, so a lawyer is a more complicated business, because sometimes you'll get money on account of expenses, okay? Or you'll get a real, for the services. Or you'll get might get a deposit. Okay, for instance, if you need to pass money over to the other side, or to a specialized professor, for instance, so you'll get money on account of that. So what is a receipt, and when do you and I worked with the income tax, with the supervisor of the income tax, and they do make checks. Okay, it's not a nice but I mean, they go crazy about that. They do make, checks, like passport checks. They do come in and they'll sample you. They sample your books, they sample and they'll check what's going on. Even if it's the war, and even more even because of the war, because some people, because there was a war, they might take advantage of that situation. I mean, sometimes you'll have looting, which are not really connected to, I mean, I'm working now with the police, yeah, not connected really to, the riots. It's, people will use that flame to go for free shopping. Anyway, so we're talking about receipts. It was in 73, and I'll go and show it I'll just read it out in Hebrew. It's according to the income tax instructions, how to manage your books, and it's the 5th paragraph, okay? So פרק ב' תיעוד. תיעוד פנים שהוא שובר קבלה, יערך לכל תקבול בנפרד, ויכלול מספר עוקב, שם הנישום, מספר תעודת זהות, מספר חברה, that's the number, and very important, the date, תאריך, שם המשלם, מענו, להוציא מקרים של בחירות כימוניות, סכום התקבול, מהות התקבול, או ציון חשבון שאותו יש לזכות, חתימת המקבל, אלא אם כן נשלחה קבלה כמסמך ממוחשב. אוקיי. then ניתן שובר קבלה בעד שטר או צ'ק, יכללו בו בנוסף הפרטים של זה, מספר הצ'ק וכו' וכו' וכו', חשבונית שנערכה על פי סעיף 9, שתמורתה סולקה במלואה סמוך לזה טובין, it's not for זה, עוד אחד משובר הקבלה יימסר למשלם. So it's very important because people fall on that, you know. I'll just explain why. I'll just, you know, I'll go to the section 5, the receipt voucher, and read it out in English. So a receipt voucher, an identity a receipt voucher will be prepared for each receipt separately and will include the sequence number to the name of the taxpayer ID. That's all there's according to the value-added tax law of the 1975, the date, the payer's name and address included in cases of cash retail sales. Okay, so that's that. The amount of the receipt, the nature of the receipt, or the account number to be credited, the recipient signature, unless it was sent and received computerized document. If it's, you know, you can get a digital, you know, digital sign. B, a receipt voucher is given in favor of a bill or check. It will include, in addition to the above identified details, the bill or check number and all that. That's all the details of the, you know, the payment that was done. An invoice drawn up according to Section 9 or payment of which this is for, you know, someone who has run stock and it's not relevant. Okay, so now I'm talking about the time. Okay, I'll just explain why it's so important to talk about the time. Because a person, if he gets money, okay, and you got an audit coming in, an audit from, you know, the tax authorities coming in. You can say, oh yeah, I just forgot, you know, to write it down and stuff like that. So it's just for a moment, I'm making coffee. No, it's immediate, it's supposed to be immediate. And if you got it by a bank transfer, you could say, okay, I don't check my bank every time. A person can, you know, maybe harass me and force upon me, you know, if a person who worked in the tax authorities or in the value-added tax and he wants to get a payback, he might, you know, force upon you a payment, and therefore send his friends. I mean, people are here, you know, they've been in the army, they really can go crazy with their, you know, all schemes and strategies and cybers and stuff like that. I mean, but we do it to ourselves. I mean, Israel is defense forces, okay? Hamas attacked us and they did crazy stuff, crazy stuff. I have a friend who, you know, got shot in her head, crazy stuff. Anyway. So we're talking about, I'll just read it very, you know, so I'll read the law itself in Hebrew, and then I'll again move forward to read it out loud in English. So, מועד עריכת התיעוד. תיעוד פנים על תקבול, על מכירה, על משלוח או הובלת טובין ועל שירות שניתן, ייערך סמוך לביצוע הפעולה. אולם, לגבי מכירה ניתן לערוך סמוך לביצוע הפעולה תעודת משלוח, בתנאי שהחשבונית תיערך במועדים שנקבעו בסעיף 46 לחוק מע"מ. Okay, so that is not relevant because Georgia is a lawyer, okay? And we are buglator, we are accountants. She is dealing with law, okay? 2. לגבי שירות שניתן, אם נרשמה הזמנה לגבי אותו שירות בספר הזמנות סמוך לקבלתה, ניתן לערוך חשבונית במועדים. Okay, I'm not in here, I'm really reading, sorry. Okay, here it is. Okay, לגבי שירות שניתן בחלקים ייערך התיעוד על כל חלק שניתן, ולגבי שירות שניתנתו מתמשכת ושלא ניתן להפריד בין קו, נגמר נתינתו. So that is actually, you know, if you, it's also in accordance to the VAT law. And I'm going backwards, okay? So a lawyer can have payments for his service, but he can have payments on expenses or payments on as a deposit. So that, because it's expenses and deposit, it's not for his services or her services. So because Hebrew, it's a by gender and everything what I'm talking about here. I'm just giving a male because it's just, you know, Hebrew has that thing. So Georgia, if you're getting, you know, money that you, it's not for your services, but it's for expenses or it's for expenses or for a deposit, that it doesn't need value added tax. It doesn't, okay? So a value added tax, it's not a receipt, okay? It's an invoice receipt, okay? But it's an invoice. It's an invoice for taxes. So if you're given a service and people who are lawyers, publicator, people who are, you know, what is known as a free, how would I translate it? Professionals, they will always have a VIT stacked on the invoice, on the service. Okay, so now we're talking about the timing. You have to write it, and if it's on services, okay, that was given, okay, I'll read it out loud. לגבי שירות שניתן בחלקים, יערך התיעוד על כל חלק שניתן, ולגבי שירות שנתינתו מתמשכת, ושלא ניתן להפריד בין חלקיו, עם גמר נתינתו. Okay, so you'll actually need to, you know, give your invoice, receipt invoice, in the end of when it was given. Anyway, but it's all depends on you. I mean, it actually, you know, for instance, if people already, you know, recruited, for instance, I'm sorry to say, but you know, it's the army comes and takes you for 100 days or whatever, you might ask from a client, give me now the money, okay? So then if you're, you know, working independently, then later on, the army can return you, you know, by that sum, because you're, you know, I mean, the country, Israel, will take that into consideration. But it's worth their while for a person to say, okay, for me now, give me the money, so I'll be compensated. It's okay. So now we go into these expenses and deposits, which are non-valued. They have no value added tax because they are like a transfer. משום תקבול בעקיפין שטרם נרשם, יערך ביום שנודע למקבל על ביצוע הפעולה, ולעניין זה תקבול בעקיפין, תשלום לצד שלישי לטובת המקבל או העברה לזכות חשבון בבנק. Now I'll read it out loud in English. Okay. The date of making the document, you know, we're issuing the document. I mean, this is a translation that is, I actually prefer the Microsoft, but anyway, this is a Google. I'll combine yeah, okay. A certificate of, you know, acceptance. It's not a receipt or sale of delivery or transport of goods and of service provided will be prepared at the same time, you know, as you got the money, execution of the operation. However, I'm not going there. I'll go because this is not such a good translation. I'll just read the final one. A registration of an indirect receipt. Okay, I have an indirect payment that was done to you. okay? For instance, by a bank transfer, has not been yet registered, where will be made only on the day when you be notified it, okay? The execution of the action. That means that when the client tells you, look, I have transferred the money, or sends you a picture of the transfer, or sends you the reference number, therefore you have to take out that a receipt, and okay, and also when you get it's, you don't need to add value added tax in Georgia if you're a lawyer, to expenses and deposits. That's for your question. But you have immediately, once the person, that was the main question, immediately once the person has transferred the money, because you say that you got it on account of a deposit. So once the person has transferred the money, you have to take out a receipt. Only a receipt. If you don't have it, okay, you have, for instance, a generic bookkeeping, you can just, well, yeah, I mean, you'll have, if it's on the computer, but if you have, a booklet, okay, for instance, people who have a booklet, they will just stay for the bookkeeper, once it's in hard copy, they can do an X on the invoice, and just say a receipt if they're out of receipts. But that's one of the main stuff. Even in a once you didn't have all kinds of softwares that were, you had a monopoly, which is actually with Microsoft. You had a monopoly of what something called Chashuv Shevet. Microsoft invested in it, and now it's Chilan. And they were 50% of the. And yeah, I mean, in all places, it's actually still that 50% is still going, although foreign programs got, certified by the tax authorities, and other softwares later on were certified. But around 2004, 2005, 50% of Israel was using Chashav Shevet, and you had the test on Chashav Shevet. If you wanted to be a bookkeeper, you had to do a manual test on Chashav Shevet. And it's not, if you talk about this multi-level marketing, I mean, it's like a bad word, multi, because it's like the American, just selling stuff and send you Tupperware, and you'll go around with the Tupperware. But it can be, I mean, the idea of a pyramid is monopoly is a monopoly, and you infiltrate through different sources. And actually, the income tax was very convenient, because because it was the tax authorities and the state actually used Microsoft as the basis, okay? And you also had SQL databases. And you had I mean, you could very easily check, and get everything in. And but there's around also 2004 it was implemented. I think in 2000 it was crazy. It was already ready in 2005, and I think it took it to all the micro leveling and registration of making the 6111 which everything is the same and just goes through to the tax authorities. But this is the income tax for the debit, but it was already ready with Chashuv Shevet and the income tax, and they were selling it, and you have to do it now, but it was enforceable very, very late. And it's easy. You have a code, you have everything, and then you can make, the income tax can make the statistics, and that's the income tax. Value-added tax is a different thing. They have a different it's all, they'll check and recheck you. So it's anyway. Good luck, Georgia. In the audit is very, there's a lot to do with the computers by the authorities, and you have to be very, very careful, very, very careful, because once you have a bug and they might know you, and I mean, it just can be very draining to come and also the professional to come and explain, and it's so that's it. Good luck. You can press like, subscribe, and continue to be updated.